Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, while Bitcoin is still struggling around this major resistance, we are confirming a new signal in the short term that we need to pay attention to and is already starting to play out. So in just a moment, I'll be talking about my exact Bitcoin trading strategy alongside Solana, which is still currently playing out this bullish divergence, while the price of Chainlink is starting to reject from this major area of resistance. So I'll be talking about all of that and so much more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the 4-day Bitcoin price chart, and right now the super trend indicator is still sitting in the red, so not much has changed over the last 1 day on this chart, and the same can be said about this weekly Bitcoin chart, because at least as of right now, this bearish divergence is still currently in place on the weekly time frame. But while that is still the situation, of course, in the somewhat short to mid-term, we are in the recovery stage out of this correction in the price of Bitcoin, as shown here in the weekly Bitcoin MACD. We're basically moving closer towards a bullish crossover. And at the current rate that we're moving, potentially in a couple of weeks from now, we could confirm a bullish crossover in this indicator, which would of course be a bullish signal. The last couple of times we've confirmed a bullish cross in the weekly Bitcoin MACD, we've seen quite a lot more bullish price action following that signal. But once again, we've not yet confirmed the bullish crossover, but we are moving closer towards that bullish crossover. So for now, once again, we're still within the recovery out of this correction. So not a lot has changed on this chart over the last 1 day. And if we're taking a look at this 3-day Bitcoin price chart, obviously right now we're running into this area of resistance based on the volume profile indicator, showing a lot of traded volume at very close to 96,000. And so continue to expect a lot of resistance at approximately 96,000 based on this volume profile indicator. And as for support, I would expect this previous area of resistance to flip into new support. So if we were to see a further pullback here, I'm not saying that will happen, but let's just say if we see a pullback, expect a lot of support around there, in between around 86 to 88,000. And really that 96k level approximately is really the final significant level of resistance before potentially all-time highs. Of course, we will likely find small amount of resistance at some other levels, but basically once we confirm a breakout, ideally above 96 to 97,000, with candle closes confirming above that level, and even better if we flip that into new support, in that situation, honestly, it's extremely likely that very soon after that would head towards the all-time high. But obviously in the meantime, we're still running into that resistance, at least for now. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin chart, obviously right now, this bullish breakout is still currently playing out. But once again, we're slowing down just a little bit in the short term as the price is running into resistance. And technically speaking, this bullish divergence on the daily time frame is still currently active, because at least for now, we've not yet confirmed any invalidation signal to invalidate the bullish divergence, which means continue to expect the most likely outcomes from a bullish divergence, which is usually either a bullish relief or a bit of choppy sideways price action as the most likely outcomes. And if we're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin RSI, obviously this is very, very close to overbought. Now, over the last 1 to 2 days here, we have cooled off a little bit, moving closer towards neutral levels, but obviously we've only seen a very slight little cool off in the RSI over the last 1 to 2 days. So we're still pretty close to overbought territories. And so it would actually be a bullish thing for Bitcoin, a good thing for Bitcoin, if we simply just cool off a little bit in the short term over the next few days, maybe in the form of just some sideways price action or maybe a slight little pullback, something like that, which can help to reset the RSI back down towards more neutral levels, which can actually give us more room towards the upside later on. And so obviously that is still perfectly playing out that almost overbought signal here on the daily time frame, basically just slowing down, resetting the RSI here. And on this daily Bitcoin chart, obviously right now we're running into the all-important golden pocket area of resistance, sitting in between around 94,500 to 95,500. So really around 95.5k to once again around 96k. That is the key point of resistance that we need to break out above. And obviously we can clearly see the price of Bitcoin struggling at this exact area of resistance that I've been talking about for a while now on the channel, obviously since before we actually hit this resistance. And so overall, it is quite likely we'll continue to struggle here, at least just a little bit longer in the short term, maybe for another few days, that sort of time frame, not necessarily months, but once again, just in the short term here, struggling around resistance, while we're also cooling off here in the daily RSI, which can ultimately give us more room towards the upside with an eventual breakout. And if we can eventually confirm a breakout above this resistance with, once again, candle closes at least on the daily time frame above 95.5k to really 96k, in that situation, the next Fibonacci level of resistance here on this chart right here is sitting at around 101,000. And so that would potentially be the next price target. And we could also find a small amount of resistance here based on these highs sitting at approximately 98,500. So expect some resistance at 98,500, some resistance at 101,000. But honestly, once we confirm a breakout above ideally 96,000, basically it's extremely likely, like I said earlier in the video, it's extremely likely we'll just continue heading up towards the all-time highs. And as for support levels to watch out for on this chart right here, I would expect this previous 50% retracement level to flip into new support if we were to see a pullback here, which that level, by the way, is sitting at around 90.5k, so around 90 to 91,000. And if we're zooming further into the short term, taking a look at the 4-hour time frame, over the last 1 to 2 days here, we've now officially confirmed a new bearish divergence in the immediate short term, once again just on the 4-hour time frame. And now it's important to understand the difference between the different time frames. So obviously on the daily time frame, we still have this bullish divergence, while here on the 4-hour time frame we have a bearish divergence, but they are not necessarily contradicting each other because they're on 2 different time frames. And so, for example, in case you're new to all of this, a signal or pattern on a smaller time frame plays out much faster and usually in smaller price movements compared to on a slightly larger time frame. It takes much longer to play out and usually on larger movements in the price. And so an example of this right here could perhaps be a little bit of a short-term cool-off, which we're already perfectly starting to play out, which I've been talking about over the last few days. Once again, that could potentially continue thanks to this short-term bearish divergence, and of course the price running into resistance and close to overbought on the daily time frame. But as this short-term bearish divergence on the 4-hour time frame plays out potentially over just a couple of days or so, once again that could just be a minor little cool-off here on the daily time frame, and then ultimately we could continue the bullish divergence later on. And so when we consider all of this information right now, my Bitcoin trading strategy is to simply just remain in this long position that I've already been talking about for over half a week now on the channel, almost 1 week. Obviously I shared this long position exactly as I was entering into the trade, basically all the way back down here, and essentially every day since then I've been sharing this trading strategy very transparently here on the channel. Of course, I took a small amount of profits back here at this high at around 94,000 approximately. I just slightly reduced the size of the trade, but of course I'm still currently long on the price of Bitcoin. And over the last 1 day, I've really made no changes to this trade right here. So my stop loss is still sitting at the same level as what I was sitting at yesterday, which is indeed in profits above my entry, which means in the worst case scenario, if the price just crashes out of nowhere, that would hit the stop loss and automatically close the trade in profits at that level. And like I mentioned in my last video here on the channel, if the price of Bitcoin maybe plays out a little bit of a cool off here, a little bit further of a pullback, in that situation, honestly, I would potentially look at some of these key points of support that I talked about earlier as potential entry points to actually add to a Bitcoin long position. Or perhaps if you missed this trade right here, it is possible we could see some entry points to actually open a new long position. Not financial advice, but remember, just in the immediate short term for the next 1 or 2 days here, expect the price to struggle around this resistance. Expect that to continue just in the immediate short term. But overall, I am more bullish than bearish on the price. It's just we're likely going to see a short-term struggle here. And if you want to actually trade these moves like what I'm doing right now to easily profit in the crypto market, make sure to check out this exchange which I'm trading on right now, which is 2bit. So I'll make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link to 2bit, by the way, you can get some massive trading bonuses. And in case you're wondering, 2bit is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want 2bit as an exchange, there's also BTNex as another exchange out there, another option that I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to BTNex below this video. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this sign up page where you can claim some massive fee discounts here. Like for example, a 10% discount on all trading fees on the BTNex Bitfinex exchange forever. That's a massive lifetime fee discount, which you can only claim using that link. And on top of that massive fee discount, you can also get some deposit bonuses over here, some trading bonuses over on Bitfinex. And in case you're wondering, Bitfinex is also a no KYC exchange. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, definitely check this out. Once again, that first and second link below this video. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map right now, of course, we already saw a bit of a short squeeze in the short term as the price broke out above around 88 to 89,000. That liquidated a bunch of short positions, which of course I've been talking about here on the channel since exactly before that happened. But right now we still have a lot of liquidity continuing to build above the price of Bitcoin here. First of all, we have a small amount of liquidity at around 96 to 97,000, but most of the liquidity towards the upside is mainly in between around 100,000 to 106 to 107,000. Basically in the low 100k area, we have a lot of liquidity around there. And in case you're new to all of this, usually, not always, but usually the price of Bitcoin tends to move towards where there's a lot of liquidity. It's basically acting as a magnet, pulling the price towards that area. And especially that's the case if the price is relatively close to that area. So obviously if we have liquidity all the way up here or all the way down here, that is not necessarily all that relevant for the price. And so that's what I expect in the shorter term for Bitcoin, and of course the mid to longer term for the price of Bitcoin here. And that is my exact trading strategy, showing very transparently here on the channel for Bitcoin. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the weekly time frame, of course right now the price of ETH is still within the larger bearish trend on the weekly time frame, also known as a bear market. But in the shorter term, we are currently experiencing a decent bounce, a relief from this massive area of support, still sitting in between around 1.4k to 1550. And once again, Ethereum would likely follow similar price action to what Bitcoin is doing. So if Bitcoin, of course, sees a bounce in the short term, like over the last couple of weeks, we'll see something similar for Ethereum as the most likely scenario. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the daily time frame, over the last one day, we technically just confirmed a breakout, at least with a slight daily candle close confirming above this 23.6% Fibonacci level of resistance, which was sitting at close to 1.8k, just under 1.8k. And once again, over the last one day, we confirmed a daily candle close just above 1.8k. But as of recording this video, we're currently retesting that level to possibly flip it into new support. So if we can now hold this level and ideally actually see a further breakout here, further bounce from 1.8k. In that situation, the next point of resistance in the short term would be sitting at close to 1.9k, just above 1.9k, and above that, the next significant point of resistance would be sitting at around 2.1k. But once again, overall, just expect similar price action to what I said for Bitcoin earlier in the video. So even if you don't hold any Bitcoin, definitely pay attention to what Bitcoin is doing, because if Bitcoin sees a bullish relief and then a little bit of a struggle, and then maybe in a few days or in a week from now, an ultimate breakout towards the upside, we will likely see something similar for Ethereum and a lot of the major altcoins. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the 3-day time frame, right now Solana is still technically playing out this massive bullish divergence, which means we should continue to expect a bullish relief, or at the very least a bit of choppy sideways price action, as the most common outcomes from a bullish divergence. And if we're taking a look at the daily Solana price chart, over the last one day, we have come in for a retest of this previous Fibonacci level of resistance, which at least for now, just in the short term here, is currently acting as short-term support, which is some good news in the short term, and that's sitting at around $146 to $147. And so if the price of Solana can now simply bounce from that level and continue to hold above that level, in that case, once again, that will be very bullish in the short term. And in that situation, the next point of resistance to watch out for would be sitting at around $167 to $168. And above that, we have more resistance at around 179 and more resistance in between around 191 to 200. But overall, at least in the short to mid-term here, the price of Solana is currently looking more bullish than it is bearish, especially with this massive bullish divergence technically still active on the 3-day time frame. But once again, as I always say, expect similar price action to what Bitcoin is doing. So if Bitcoin struggles a little bit in the short term around that point of resistance, playing out an almost overbought signal here. Of course, we'll likely see a little bit of a struggle in the short term for Solana and a lot of the altcoins. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the 3-day time frame, technically speaking, this massive bearish divergence is still active for the price of XRP. As I said months ago, all the way back here, warning you that we have a massive bearish divergence playing out. And of course, it's perfectly played out over the last few months here. But technically, we are moving closer towards possibly invalidating this bearish divergence right here, but we've not currently confirmed that invalidation. And if we're taking a look at the daily XRP chart, obviously, as of right now, the price of XRP is still within this descending parallel channel, which is essentially a bearish trend forming lower highs and lower lows. But in the shorter term, during the descending parallel channel, we are clearly within a short-term bullish relief. And right now, the next significant point of resistance to watch out for is sitting at approximately $2.45. And so overall, in the immediate short term, while Bitcoin and Solana, for example, and a lot of these altcoins just in the shorter term are playing out these bullish reliefs, but in the immediate short term, struggling a little bit, expect something similar for XRP. Of course, over the last few days here, we have struggled a little bit where we are, but over the last couple of weeks, we've clearly seen a bullish relief. So expect something similar moving forward. Once again, a little bit more of a struggle, but then most likely a continued bullish relief, especially if Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market ultimately breaks out. And these other levels of support and resistance have not really changed over the last one day. So getting straight into the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame. And right now, Chainlink is currently experiencing a little bit more of a rejection from this very significant golden pocket based on the previous golden pocket area of support, which flipped into significant resistance right here around the end of March. And that was sitting in between around $14.90 to $15.50. So roughly $15, give or take, and especially that $15.50 level that is acting as major resistance. And obviously the price of Chainlink here perfectly came exactly up towards this golden pocket area of resistance and is exactly struggling in this area, as I've been warning about for a while now on the channel since before we hit that area. And now technically speaking, this bullish divergence is still active for the price of Chainlink, which means right now, once again, we're likely not necessarily going to be massively bearish here, just struggle for a little longer around this resistance, especially while Bitcoin struggles in the short term. And like I mentioned recently here on the channel, even if the price of Chainlink plays out a further rejection here, I'm not saying that's guaranteed to happen. I'm saying even if that happens, that's not necessarily all bad news for Chainlink, because we could possibly be forming an inverse head and shoulders pattern here on the daily Chainlink chart. And so the situation for Chainlink here would only really start to flip much more bearish again if we actually start breaking back below around, let's just say, $12.70 to $12.80, and especially below around $12. If we start breaking below that area on the price chart, then obviously in that situation, that would be looking very bearish. But even if the price pulls all the way back down towards that level, once again at around $12.80, give or take, and then see some sort of bounce there, or some sort of bounce at close to $13, in that situation, that could possibly form a right shoulder for a potential inverse head and shoulders pattern, which, by the way, in case you're new to all of this, an inverse head and shoulders pattern is a bullish price pattern. And in that situation, if we see the right shoulder first form, and then if we confirm the breakout above this golden pocket above 1550, in that situation, that will set up a massive bullish price target well beyond $20 per Chainlink. And so that's what I'm currently keeping an eye on for the price of Chainlink. But once again, I want to make this clear, at least for now, that possible inverse head and shoulders pattern is not currently confirmed. It's not in play. It's just possibly forming. I'm simply just pointing it out. And if we do not form the inverse head and shoulders pattern here, we simply just break out above this resistance above 1550. In that situation, would likely see a continued bullish move up towards around 1750 to 1760 as the next significant resistance. And once again, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, like what I'm doing right now over on 2bit, check out those links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can take these trades like what I'm doing just here, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.